Riot loves pulling inspiration from myths and legends to build up Runeterra's lore. And of course, the most famous mythological creature of them all is the dragon. Everybody knows what a dragon is, because in basically every fantasy setting, you're gonna find dragons. They're usually the strongest beings around, sometimes even tied to gods. And in Runeterra, it's no different. If you play League, you'd know that there are 6 elemental dragons: Earth, Water, Wind, Fire, and more recently, Chemtech and Hextech. There's also the Elder Dragon. But here's the thing, not every dragon in Runeterra shows up in League. Actually, almost none of them do. However, before we dive into that, let's ask the real question. What even is a dragon? You're probably picturing something like League's Fire Dragon, but check out this Chinese dragon on screen. It's also a dragon. So what exactly counts as a dragon? Let's break it down. Dragons first came from people finding fossils. In Europe, they were linked to lizards. In Asia, they were linked to serpents. That's why their designs look so different, since those cultures weren't in contact with each other when they first made those discoveries. In China, dragons are seen as symbols of wisdom and power. In Europe, they're treated as mere bloodthirsty monsters. Now here's a fun fact. The word dragon comes from the Latin draco, which means giant serpent. A lot of Romance languages, like Portuguese and Spanish, still use a version of that word because they evolved from Latin. In China though, they usually say lung, which means dragon, and is tied to good luck. So yeah, dragons aren't the same everywhere, and there's actually a classification system for them depending on their number of legs and wings. Check this out. If it's got no wings and no legs, it's a worm. 2 wings and no legs, that's an amphiptere. 2 legs and no wings, lindworm. 2 legs and 2 wings, that's the classic wyvern you see in European-inspired fantasy. 4 legs and no wings, that's a drake, like Shenlong from the Dragon Ball. And 4 legs plus 2 wings, that's a dragon. So yeah, the ones we've got in League really are dragons. Let's talk about them in Runeterra. In Riot's multiverse, dragon is a broad term. It covers all reptilian-like beings that come from draconic lineage, and they split into 2 groups: celestial dragons and terrestrial dragons. First, the celestials. They don't have a natural physical form. Instead, they choose draconic forms to interact with Runeterra. Aurelion Sol is a prime example. He's not biologically a dragon, he's a celestial who picked a dragon form. Then you've got Involus Vox, said to be a single celestial mind speaking through the countless beings across the cosmos. His legendary voice echoes through time and space, calling others of his kind. At some point, he descended into Runeterra to await Aurelion Sol's command to summon every dragon within. There's also the Great Beyond, a massive constellation of dragons, Aurelion Sol's favorite creation, designed specifically to bring annihilation to Runeterra. Then we've got the Infinite Mind Splitter, which basically destroys the minds of anyone who meets its gaze by overwhelming them with impossible knowledge. Fun stuff. Some celestials actually start life in the physical realm until they mature. Notable ones are the White Flame and the Eclipse Dragon. Fun fact, the Eclipse Dragon's scales have crazy optical properties. They reflect sunlight and glow at night. Alright, let's move on to the terrestrial dragons. They kind of copied their celestial counterparts. Unlike the celestials who stick to the cosmos, terrestrials live in the physical or spiritual realm, and they're split into types. Air dragons control wind magic. Examples are the Camavorian dragon, the Cloud Drake, the Empyrean, and the Stalking Dragon. Earth dragons have tough rock-like scales. Examples, the Screeching Dragon and Mountain Drake. Fire dragons, the most common. They breathe fire and radiate heat. Exampled, Enraged Fire Spitter, Shyvana, Infernal Drake, and Kadrigrin. Ice dragons breathe ice shards and radiate cold. Bodir's one of them. Spirit dragons are linked to the spirit realm or nature. They often look ghostly. Some even say they take form of a warrior or king. Examples, Camavorian Dragon or Portia. Storm dragons wield electric magic and call lightning storms. The only real example is Aoshin, who isn't exactly canon. Tech dragons are possibly human modified, could have been created from scratch or altered from another dragon type. Examples, Chemtech Drake and Hextech Drake. Water dragons blast water or are literally made of water. Examples, Ocean Drake, Sephirsa, and Dragonling. Elder Dragon, not really tied to a specific type. Maybe once a dragon reaches a certain age, they become elders, or maybe it's just an insanely powerful one. And then you've got the pseudo dragons, which are like lesser dragon subspecies with little to no elemental power. Examples are the Basilisks and Drakehounds, both from Nexus. Alright, quick question. What's Aoshin? Check out that image. He's got 4 legs, and those things that look like wings, not actually wings. His design's way more connected to Asian culture, similar to Shenlong. So yeah, he's a drake. Option D. Now look at this one. 4 legs, 2 wings. Yep, that's a real dragon, just like the ones in League. This one's from Legends of Runeterra, also a dragon. And this other one, 2 legs, no wings, it's a dragonfish, so that makes it a lindworm. And hey, maybe I can consider you a subscriber, someone who hits the like button, and maybe even thought about becoming a channel member to unlock perks, like early access to videos and voting on topics. Anyway, Anyway, moving on. The science of dragons is called dragonology, and the researchers are dracologists. No idea if that's real. I'm guessing it's just a Runeterra thing, since dragons don't exactly exist. At least not after what I did to them. So if you're a dragon, watch out. According to Heimerdinger, the dragon trainer from the Dragon World universe, draconic enzymes are super flammable. And yeah, dragons drool a lot. He also says resource hoarding is totally natural for them.
Dragons? Fascinating, aren't they?
Actually, now that I think about it, Shyvana's old lore added something wild to Runeterra's dragon mythology. Apparently, all female dragons are born with an elemental rune instead of a heart. For example, Shyvana was born with a fire rune. This means all elemental dragons are female, since only female ones have the rune. That would explain why there are way more females than male, and why it's so hard for dragons to reproduce. Now, how they reproduce, that's tricky. You'd think a water dragon would need another water dragon, but if they're all female, that doesn't add up unless dragons have some special method. Maybe they just lay eggs by gathering mana and then boom, an egg pops out. No one really knows. And get this, apparently all elder dragons are male. That messed me up at first, because I always thought the elder dragon was just the oldest dragon alive, not necessarily a gender-based thing. But the wiki clearly say plural elder dragons, so maybe any dragon that reaches that age becomes an elder, which does make sense, since the name elder basically means super old. Still, I always kind of pictured there only being one. Some dragon species are both terrifying and majestic, living in societies built on pride and power. They see mixing their blood with other races as a disgusting abomination, and hunt down half-dragons to wipe them out. Shyvana learned that firsthand. With that in mind, let's take a look at how the different regions in Runeterra deal with dragons. Did you know that Demacia is really into dragonology? They've got an entire order of knights dedicated to protecting their kingdom against dragons, called the Dragon Guard. Shyvana actually joined them and earned huge respect amongst their top ranks. In Ionia, the Shojin Order monks dedicate their lives to training, believing that their skills come from the spirit of the dragon. Ionia is full of dragon species, so people there are super familiar with them. Ishtal's jungles have the highest concentration of elemental dragons anywhere, and a ton of their abandoned ruins are crawling with them. These beasts haven't fought alongside mortals since Shurima's war against the Void, and now they mostly just want to be left alone. Noxus straight up weaponizes dragon subspecies, using them as mounts, war beasts, and battering rams. Mount Targon's slopes are home to tons of different dragons, both terrestrial and celestial. And finally, Camivore, probably the region most tied to dragon lore. Camivore used to be full of imperial dragons, known as Camivorian dragons. They had an ancient pact with the human royal family, the Volvisperi Descenvane. In exchange for offerings, the dragons defend the kingdom in wars. This oath was made millennia ago by King Camor and the matriarch grandmother Viper, who was later killed by Nila. For generations, these imperial dragons fought alongside Camivore's royalty, until a tragedy wiped out almost all of them. Luckily, their legacy survived through Smolder. Now that I've mentioned him, let's talk about the dragon champions.
Oh no! It's a dragon! Ah! Run away! Ah!
Eventually, King Viego tried to summon the Imperial Dragons to fight with him on the Blessed Isles. They refused, realizing he was insane. Unfortunately, this didn't matter, because the Ruination would end up destroying their kingdom anyway. Only a handful survived, until centuries later, Smolder hatched. He was stolen by Noxians, but his mother tracked him down and destroyed their ship. Smolder got swept away in the wreck, washing him up on the island where he met a boy named Marinos. They became friends, and after training for a long time, Smolder finally learned how to breathe fire. That's how he found his mom again. Now he lives a normal dragon life with her.
Tremble before the power of a dragon.
Deep in a volcano, her mother, Yiva, laid 2 eggs. A mage stole one, knowing that the hatchling would have an elemental rune, which he had planned to sell. On the way to Piltover, the egg hatched and came out Shyvana, not a normal dragon, but a violet-skinned humanoid. The mage raised her as his daughter and named her Shyvana after her mother. Now, there are multiple versions of her lore. In one, it's explained that she became humanoid because the mage's magic fused with the egg. Riot later removed that explanation, so either you believe the old version, or you just accept that we don't know why she's humanoid. Shyvana and her mother have a rather strange bond. When Yiva's other kid learned to fly, she went looking for Shyvana. When she was eventually found, Yiva rained dragon fire on her, killing Shyvana's adoptive father and forcing her to run. Later, Shyvana would save a wounded warrior transforming into a dragon to carry him to safety. That warrior turned out to be Prince Jarvan, heir to Demacia's throne. And yeah, that's where their romance started. But she couldn't hide forever. Yiva eventually found her again. Left with no other choice, Shyvana and Jarvan killed her.
There simply are no other dragons like me.
Born with the first breath of creation, he took a dragon form so mortals could understand him. Though he sees terrestrial dragons as cheap imitations, when he discovered Runeterra, his arrogance got him trapped by Targon's Celestials. They gave him a crown he thought was a gift, but it was actually a shackle. He still hasn't broken free. Back in 2013, Riot teased Aoshin, a storm dragon inspired by Eastern myths, meant to be a guardian of Ionia. The name's symbolic. Ao comes from mythical dragon kings who ruled water and weather, and Shin can mean prosperity or a rising storm. So yeah, he was designed to be elegant, powerful, and divine. But due to technical and design problems, he was cancelled in 2016. The project later became Aurelian's Soul, shifting from elemental to cosmic, but keeping some of his original concepts. As a tribute, Aoshin shows up in TFT as a little legend and a thematic unit. And by the way, the Dragonlands in TFT aren't necessarily part of Runeterra's canon, just a side universe. And that's pretty much it. See you guys in the next video.